The glass in my hand wasn't just champagne. It was poison. And I was 6 months pregnant, standing in a ballroom full of 200 people who were about to watch my husband destroy me. Marcus Sterling, Manhattan's most ruthless corporate king. He took the microphone with that smile I used to love, the one that promised the world. Tonight it promised something else. "Ladies and gentlemen," his voice smooth as aged whiskey, "thank you for joining us this Christmas Eve." I stood by the ice sculpture that cost more than my first car, one hand on my rounded belly where our daughter slept. My emerald dress suddenly felt too tight, the fabric I'd bought on sale 3 months ago clinging like a bad decision. "First," Marcus continued, "Sterling Global is finalizing our merger with Monroe Industries next month." Polite applause rippled through the crowd. Crystal glasses clinked. The jazz quartet paused respectfully. My eyes found Blake Monroe across the room. Tall, blonde, wearing a dress that probably had its own security detail. She smiled at Marcus with a familiarity that made my stomach drop. And second, Marcus's eyes met mine, and the temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. Victoria and I are separating. The silence that followed wasn't quiet. It was the loudest sound I'd ever heard. 200 people holding their breath, 200 pairs of eyes turning toward me. My hand tightened on my glass. The non-alcoholic sparkling cider suddenly tasted like ash. Blake moved through the crowd with the grace of a shark. She took the microphone from Marcus, her red lips curving. "I know this seems sudden," she said, her voice carrying through the sound system. "But Marcus and I have been in love for years." Years. The word hung in the air between us. I did the math. 4 years of marriage. She said years. "Sometimes," Blake continued, "you meet your true partner in business and in life. Marcus deserves someone who understands his world, not someone who still uses coupons and drives a 10-year-old Honda." The laughter started with Marcus's brother. A sharp, ugly sound. Then his mother joined in. Then his entire family. Their amusement washed over me in waves, each laugh another cut. I was Victoria Sterling, a forensic accountant who had spent 12 years uncovering corporate fraud, standing frozen while my own life was stolen in front of an audience. Blake approached me now, heels clicking on marble like a countdown. She carried a leather folder that probably cost more than my weekly grocery budget. "We need your signature tonight, Victoria." She said it loud enough for nearby guests to hear. "Marcus is being generous, $50,000. Considering you brought debt into this marriage, you should be grateful." $50,000 for 4 years, for putting him through business school, for working 60-hour weeks while he built his empire, for the child growing inside me. My forensic accountant's mind, usually reserved for tracing millions through shell companies, finally woke up and looked at my own life. The merger announced weeks ago, but Blake spoke of years. Marcus's declining quarterly reports, but the new Rolex on his wrist. The offshore account references in his home office I dismissed as client work. The pattern was there. I just refused to see it. Blake held out a pen. Montblanc, of course. I took it. My hand didn't shake. That surprised me. I signed Victoria Sterling one last time on the divorce papers. "Good," Blake purred. "Now run along. The adults have celebrating to do." I looked from her to Marcus, who was already pouring champagne, laughing with his brother as if he hadn't just ended our marriage as Christmas entertainment. "You think this is over," I said quietly, so only she could hear. Her smile didn't waver. "Honey, you're a nobody. What exactly do you think you're going to do?" I didn't answer. I turned and walked through the silent ballroom, past the staring guests, past the smirking Sterling family. My heels echoed in the sudden quiet, each step measured, controlled. I made it to the lobby before my knees buckled. The doorman caught my arm. Mrs. Sterling, are you all right? I need a cab, I managed. Outside, December air hit me like a slap. Snow was falling, turning Manhattan into a snow globe of false purity. I gave the driver my address and spent the 20-minute ride making a mental list. Secure documents. Access the financial records I'd been photographing for months. Call my father. Find a lawyer. The cab pulled up to our building on the Upper East Side. My building, our home. A locksmith's van was parked out front. Through the glass lobby doors, I saw Marcus's assistant supervising two men who were changing the locks on my door. I paid the driver and approached, my stomach tightening with each step. "Excuse me," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "This is my apartment." The assistant, a young man whose name I'd never bothered to learn, handed me a manila envelope without meeting my eyes. "Mr. Sterling asked me to give you this. Your personal items have been moved to storage." I stared at the envelope. "He can't do this." "The lease is in Mr. Sterling's name, ma'am. His attorney said your presence would constitute trespassing." I opened the envelope. A storage unit key, an address in New Jersey, a typed note. "Do not contact me or my family. All communications through my lawyer." I walked back to the snowy sidewalk and called Marcus's number. Straight to voicemail. I called again. Same. On the third try, the automated message informed me my number had been blocked. Standing there in my torn dress, snow collecting in my hair, I opened my banking app. The joint account, zero balance. Marcus had withdrawn $180,000 that morning. My personal savings, $47,000. My emergency fund. The money I'd saved from freelance forensic work, telling myself it was for our daughter's college fund. I sat down on the curb. The cold seeped through my dress, but I barely felt it. 6 months pregnant. Homeless. Bank account emptied. Divorce papers signed. And somewhere in the back of my mind, my professional instincts whispered that something about Marcus's finances didn't add up. That a man who offered $50,000 in a settlement after withdrawing nearly $200,000 in cash was hiding something much bigger. I called my father. "Dad," I said when he answered, "I need help." Harold Miller's house in Queens was exactly as I remembered. Small, clean, filled with 40 years of memories and the quiet sadness of 18 years alone since my mother died. The Christmas decorations were sparse this year. Since his early dementia diagnosis, some things had become too much. He met me at the door with open arms and no questions. Later, at his kitchen table with tea growing cold between us, I told him everything. The affair, the Christmas party, the locks, the money. My father listened, his weathered face calm. At 67, he still had the strong hands of a man who'd worked construction for 40 years. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "That boy never did load the dishwasher right," he finally said. "I should have said something." I laughed despite myself. It came out wet, choked. "Dad, he was stealing money and cheating on me." "Also that," Harold agreed. "But the dishwasher thing really bothered me." We sat in silence, the kind that only exists between people who know each other's bones. Outside, snow continued to fall, muffling Queens into something soft and quiet. "What are you going to do, sweetheart?" he asked. 24 hours ago, I would have said I had no options. That I was just a forensic accountant who'd trusted the wrong man. That I'd take whatever settlement Marcus offered and start over. But something had shifted. Maybe it was Blake's cruelty. The casual way she discussed taking my unborn daughter. Maybe it was realizing Marcus had planned this for months while I remained oblivious. Maybe it was simply the professional in me finally examining my own life with the same scrutiny I gave corporate fraud. I'm going to find out exactly how much he's been hiding, I said, and then I'm going to make him regret every single lie. The next morning, I set up my laptop at my father's kitchen table and began to work. For years, I'd done Sterling Global's taxes as a favor, never charging, telling myself it was just helping my husband. I had access to financial records going back 6 years. More importantly, I'd noticed patterns over the past 3 years that I'd dismissed as mistakes. Now, applying the full force of my forensic accounting training, I began to see the truth. Shell companies in Delaware with no business purpose. Wire transfers to the Cayman Islands. Consulting fees paid to firms that existed only on paper. Classic fraud indicators, the kind I saw in white-collar crime cases all the time. By evening, I'd traced $4.2 million in hidden assets. Marcus hadn't just been cheating on me. He'd been stealing from his own company for years. The merger with Monroe Industries wasn't an opportunity. It was an exit strategy. Once it completed, he'd have legitimate access to resources to hide his fraud forever. This wasn't just grounds for a better divorce settlement. This was federal crime territory. I called a lawyer the next morning, an expensive one, the kind whose ads promised aggressive representation for high-asset divorces. I used half my savings, $23,500, as a retainer. Richard Kensington had silver hair, a suit that cost more than my father's car, and an office with a view of Central Park. He reviewed my evidence with barely concealed excitement. "This is solid," he said, leaning back in his leather chair. "We can use this in divorce proceedings and report him to the SEC. You won't just get your fair share, Mrs. Sterling. You might end up owning half his company." For 2 weeks, I allowed myself to hope. I gathered more evidence, documented more shell companies, traced more hidden transfers. Then my phone rang at 6 on a Tuesday morning. "Victoria, it's Richard Kensington. We need to talk." His voice had lost its confident edge. "What's wrong?" "I can't represent you anymore. I'm withdrawing from the case effective immediately." "Why?" A long pause. "Conflict of interest. Monroe Industries is a client of our firm. One of our partners handles their corporate litigation. I should have caught this earlier." "You have all my evidence," I said slowly. "My strategy, everything." "I'll return all documents, of course, and the remaining retainer, but I can't be involved in any matter adverse to Monroe Industries." "This isn't about your firm's conflict," I said, my instincts screaming. "Frank Monroe got to you, didn't he?" Another pause. "I wish you the best of luck, Mrs. Sterling. I truly do." He hung up. I spent the next 3 days calling every divorce attorney in Manhattan. The pattern became clear after the 12th rejection. Frank Monroe, Blake's father, had connections to every major law firm in the city. His real estate empire required armies of lawyers, and those lawyers had friends who had partners who had classmates. No one would take my case. 3 weeks after the Christmas party, my savings had dwindled to $12,000. Then Marcus struck. The first document arrived by certified mail, a petition for full custody of our unborn daughter. I read it with growing horror. Marcus's lawyers painted me as unstable. They cited my emergency room visit on Christmas night, where I'd gone to check on the baby after my water broke from stress, as evidence of mental instability. They included statements from his family describing me as paranoid. They mentioned my father's dementia as evidence of family mental health issues. All lies, but expensive lies. The second document came the next day, a temporary restraining order. I couldn't access the marital home, Marcus's financial records, or any of my evidence. The order claimed I'd been making threatening calls to Blake Monroe. I'd never called Blake, not once. The third document arrived a week later, a motion to compel me to submit to a psychological evaluation before any custody decisions. They argued my fraud accusations were delusional, evidence of a paranoid personality disorder exacerbated by pregnancy hormones. I sat in my father's kitchen, surrounded by legal documents. I couldn't afford to fight and felt something crack inside me. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Meet me at the diner on 74th. 1 hour, I can help. Karen." I almost deleted it, almost. But I had $12,000 left. No lawyer, and a court date in 14 days that would likely give my daughter to a man who saw her only as a weapon to hurt me. I told my father I was going for a walk. The diner was mostly empty at 3 in the afternoon. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Coffee smelled burnt. A woman in her mid-30s sat in a booth by the window. Professional, anxious. She stood when she saw me. "Mrs. Sterling, I'm Karen Edwards. I was Marcus's executive assistant until 6 months ago." We sat. She didn't touch her coffee. "Why did you reach out?" I asked. "Because he did to me what he's doing to you." Her hands trembled slightly. "I worked for Marcus for 4 years. I saw the shell companies, the wire transfers, the meetings with Monroe's people. When I started asking questions, he made me feel crazy." "What happened?" "I kept copies of everything. Emails, invoices, wire transfers. Then he found out, fired me, threatened to blacklist me from every company in New York if I ever talked." She opened her bag and pulled out a thumb drive. "This is everything," she said, sliding it across the table. "Emails between Marcus and Frank Monroe discussing the merger as a cover for money laundering. Wire transfer records. A recording of Marcus threatening me." I stared at the thumb drive. "Why are you giving this to me?" "Because I saw you on the news, saw what he was doing to you, saw that he was going to get away with it again." She met my eyes. "I couldn't let that happen to someone else." "I don't have a lawyer anymore," I said. "I can't afford." "There's a woman," Karen interrupted. "Rebecca Lawson. She runs a legal aid clinic in the Bronx, takes cases no one else will touch. She hates bullies." I took the thumb drive. It felt heavy in my hand. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet," Karen said. "Marcus has people watching you. He knows you're digging. Be careful." I left the diner with the thumb drive in my pocket and a new problem. How did I contact a lawyer with no money while being watched? My phone buzzed again as I reached my father's street. Unknown number. "Your father is wandering. Police brought him home. You might want to hurry." I ran. 2 police cars were parked outside my father's house. An ambulance. Neighbors stood on porches, watching. An officer stopped me at the door. "Are you Victoria Sterling?" "Yes, my father." "He's inside. A neighbor found him 4 miles away, confused, looking for his wife." "My mother, dead 18 years. I found my father in the living room, wrapped in a blanket, a paramedic checking his vitals." "Dad." He looked up, eyes clearing for a moment. "Victoria, what's happening?" The social worker introduced herself with a clipboard and gentle voice. "We need to talk about care plans, Ms. Sterling. Your father wandered into traffic. This isn't safe." I handled it, arranged for a part-time caregiver, installed extra locks, balanced caring for my father with preparing for court with managing my last $12,000. That night, as my father slept, I plugged in Karen's thumb drive. The evidence was worse than I'd imagined. Marcus hadn't just been stealing from his company. He'd been laundering money for Frank Monroe for years. The merger was the final step. Integration, legitimacy. And Blake. Payments from Marcus to accounts she controlled, dating back 3 years. Before our marriage. The affair wasn't recent. None of it was. Our entire relationship had been a lie. I was printing documents when my phone rang. A number I didn't recognize. Victoria Sterling, a woman's voice. Brisk, no nonsense. Yes. Rebecca Lawson. Karen Edwards said you need help, my office. 9 tomorrow morning, don't be late. She hung up before I could respond. I looked at the documents spread across my father's kitchen table. Evidence of fraud, evidence of conspiracy, evidence that the man I'd married was a stranger. My daughter kicked, a sharp reminder that time wasn't on my side. 8 months pregnant. No money. No lawyer until morning. A father who needed care. A husband who wanted to take my child. I gathered the documents into a folder. Marcus thought he'd won, thought I was broken. He was about to discover that broken things can still cut. Rebecca Lawson's office smelled like old coffee and determination. The legal aid clinic occupied the second floor of a converted warehouse in the South Bronx, the waiting room packed with people whose problems were no less devastating for being common. I took a number and waited 2 hours, the folder of evidence heavy on my lap. When I finally sat across from her, Rebecca Lawson wasn't what I expected. Mid-40s, tired eyes, hair pulled into a messy bun. Her desk was buried in files, her sweater had a small coffee stain, and her demeanor was brisk to the point of brusqueness. "Talk," she said, not looking up from the file she was reading. "You have 10 minutes. I talked for 9. The marriage, the Christmas party, the $4.2 million in hidden assets, the lawyer who dropped me, the custody petition, the thumb drive from Karen Edwards, my father wandering, the $12,000 left in my savings. When I finished, she finally looked up. "Let me get this straight," she said. "Your husband hid millions, kicked you out while pregnant, and is now trying to take your baby using your father's dementia against you." "Yes." "And you have forensic accounting skills." "Yes." "And you have evidence of money laundering, connecting him to Frank Monroe." I opened the folder and slid the first printout across the desk. "Wire transfers over 3 years, shell companies, the merger is a cover." Rebecca studied the document. Her expression didn't change, but something shifted in her eyes. A focus, a sharpening. "Your husband thinks he has all the power because he has money," she said. "But money only works when the other side plays by his rules." She looked at me. "We're not going to play by his rules." "What does that mean?" "It means we stop trying to win in family court and start threatening him where it actually hurts. His business, his freedom." She leaned forward. "How soon can you trace the full $4.2 million with admissible documentation?" "A week, maybe less." "Do it." She stood, grabbing a legal pad. "I'm going to file a motion to dissolve the restraining order based on evidence of criminal activity. We'll request an emergency hearing. If we can get a judge to see this isn't a divorce case, it's a fraud case with a pregnant victim, we change the entire game." "I can't pay you," I said quietly. Rebecca waved a hand. "I have a grant for victims of financial abuse. You qualify, but listen." She fixed me with a look. "This will get ugly. They will come after you harder. They'll use your father. They'll try to make you look unstable. Can you handle that?" My daughter kicked, a solid thump against my ribs. A reminder, a promise. "Yes," I said. "Good." Rebecca scribbled something on a card. "My email, send me everything, every document, every transaction. I want to bury him in paperwork so thick he can't see daylight." For the next week, I worked from my father's kitchen table while a caregiver sat with him in the living room. I traced Marcus's hidden money through corporate structures so complex they would have been beautiful if they weren't so corrupt. Shell companies nested inside shell companies. Consulting agreements with firms that were mailboxes in strip malls. Wire transfers that bounced through 6 countries, before landing in accounts controlled by one person. Marcus Sterling. But it was worse than embezzlement. The deeper I dug, the clearer the pattern became. Payments from Monroe Industries dating back 3 years, before the merger was ever announced. Money flowing out of Sterling Global, through Shells, into the Caymans, then back to Monroe through different channels. I called Rebecca on day 4. "It's not just hidden assets," I said, staring at my laptop screen. "He's been washing money for the Monroes for years. The merger is the final step, integration." Rebecca was silent for a moment. This just went from divorce court to federal conspiracy charges. "There's more," I said, pulling up another file. "Personal payments from Marcus to Blake, over 3 years of them. This affair wasn't recent. They've been planning this since before he married me." The full picture was devastating. Marcus had never loved me. I'd been convenient. A smart accountant who could help build his business while remaining oblivious to its true nature. When the Monroe opportunity solidified, I became disposable. Everything about our marriage had been a lie. "I'm sorry," Rebecca said quietly. It was the first time I'd heard sympathy in her voice. "Don't be sorry," I said. "Help me make him pay for it." We filed our motion on a Friday afternoon, timing it for maximum impact. Rebecca had contacts at 3 local news stations, always hungry for stories about wealthy Manhattan businessmen behaving badly. The motion outlined Marcus's fraud in devastating detail: hidden assets, tax evasion, money laundering, connections to one of New York's most prominent real estate families. It named names, cited transactions, included enough evidence to make any federal prosecutor take notice. Marcus's lawyers responded with fury. Emergency motions to seal the records. Motions to sanction Rebecca for unsubstantiated allegations. Requests for psychological evaluations of me. The hearing was scheduled for Tuesday morning. The night before, someone threw a brick through my father's living room window. Glass shattered at 2 a.m. My father woke confused, frightened. The caregiver called the police while I stood in the living room, staring at the brick on the floor. No note, just destruction. The message was clear. The police took a report. A detective with tired eyes looked at the brick, then at me, then at my pregnant belly. "You in some kind of trouble, ma'am." "A divorce," I said. He nodded like he'd seen this before. "Get a security camera, and maybe stay somewhere else tonight." I couldn't afford somewhere else, so I boarded up the window and slept on the couch with a baseball bat beside me. The hearing the next morning felt like walking into a battlefield. Marcus arrived with 3 lawyers. All of them looked expensive. All of them looked confident. He didn't look at me. Blake sat in the gallery with her father. Frank Monroe was older than I expected, with sharp eyes and a suit that probably cost more than my father's house. Rebecca leaned over. "Remember, this isn't about convincing his lawyers. It's about convincing the judge." Judge Patricia Coleman took the bench at 9 sharp. Mid-50s, sharp eyes, a reputation for being no-nonsense. "Counsel," she said, "this is highly unusual. Mrs. Sterling, you're alleging criminal activity in a family court proceeding. Explain." Rebecca stood. "Your Honor, we're not asking this court to adjudicate criminal matters. We're demonstrating that Mr. Sterling's financial misconduct directly impacts the custody and support issues before you. You can't determine equitable distribution if you don't know what assets exist." Marcus's lead attorney stood, silver-haired, polished. "Your Honor, this is a transparent attempt to distract from Mrs. Sterling's mental instability and inability to provide a stable environment. She's alleging a vast conspiracy with 0 proof." "We have proof," Rebecca said calmly. She handed a binder to the clerk. "Forensic accounting analysis tracing $4.2 million in hidden assets. wire transfers, shell companies, evidence of money laundering with Monroe Industries. The judge accepted the binder. She spent 5 minutes reading in silence. The courtroom waited. Finally, she looked up. "Mr. Sterling, your attorneys have asked me to seal these records and dismiss them as paranoid delusions." She tapped the binder. "Would you care to explain why a paranoid delusion includes specific wire transfer numbers and account details?" Marcus's attorney didn't miss a beat. "Mrs. Sterling is a forensic accountant. She has the technical knowledge to fabricate documents that appear genuine. We believe she's suffering from a delusional disorder exacerbated by pregnancy. These documents are the product of that delusion." Judge Coleman raised an eyebrow. "So your defense is that she's too good at her job to be believed?" "We're requesting a continuance to allow our experts to examine the authenticity." "Motion denied." The judge's voice was crisp. "Mrs. Sterling, the court will appoint an independent forensic examiner to verify your evidence. If what you've presented is accurate, this case will be referred to federal authorities. If it's fabricated, you'll face serious consequences. Do you understand?" I stood. "Yes, Your Honor, I have nothing to hide." "The temporary restraining order is dissolved effective immediately. Mr. Sterling will provide a complete accounting of all marital assets within 14 days. Temporary custody of the minor child when born is awarded to Mrs. Sterling pending final disposition." She looked at Marcus. "I suggest you take this very seriously." For the first time since Christmas, I felt something like hope. Outside the courtroom, reporters swarmed. "Mrs. Sterling, is it true your husband is involved with organized crime? Are you afraid for your safety? What about your baby?" Rebecca handled them with practiced ease. "No comment at this time. Our focus is on ensuring a safe environment for Mrs. Sterling and her child." Across the hall, Marcus was holding his own press conference. "These allegations are baseless and hurtful," he said, his voice breaking with what sounded like real emotion. "My wife is struggling mentally. I just want what's best for our daughter." I watched him, this man I'd shared a bed with for 4 years, and felt nothing. No anger, no hurt, just cold, clear focus. He caught my eye for a second. Something flashed in his expression. Not regret, surprise, like he'd expected me to be broken by now. Rebecca pulled me away. "Don't engage, let's go." That night, I allowed myself to celebrate. Maggie Thompson, my former mentor from my old accounting firm, showed up with champagne for her and sparkling cider for me. She was 58, silver-haired, and had survived 3 divorces and 2 corporate scandals. "To the most dangerous woman Marcus Sterling ever met," she toasted. My father had a good day. He laughed at Maggie's jokes, told stories about my mother, and fell asleep in his chair by 8. For a few hours, everything felt like it might be okay. "You actually did it," I said, one hand on my belly. Maggie refilled her glass. "You did. But honey, this is just round 1. He's not going to let $4.2 million go without a fight." She was right. The independent forensic examiner was a retired FBI agent named Walter Morrison. No relation to anyone involved, he assured us. He spent 2 weeks reviewing my documents, cross-referencing my findings with public records, running his own traces. His report was delivered on a snowy February morning. Rebecca called me at 7 a.m. "Get down here. Now." I arrived at her office to find her reading the report, a slow smile spreading across her face. "Every transaction checks out," she said, looking up. "Morrison says your analysis isn't just accurate, it's conservative. You found $4.2 million. He thinks it's closer to $5.8 million. And he found additional evidence suggesting the Monroe connection extends to securities fraud." I sat down heavily. "So it's real." "It's very real." She handed me the report. And it's about to end Marcus Sterling. The next hearing was packed. Reporters, court artists, Frank Monroe and Blake in the front row, Marcus with his team of lawyers, all of them looking less confident today. Walter Morrison took the stand. Under Rebecca's questioning, he confirmed everything. The hidden assets, the shell companies, the money laundering, the connections to Monroe Industries. In your expert opinion, Rebecca asked, is Mrs. Sterling's analysis accurate? Not just accurate, Morrison said. Exceptionally thorough. She traced transactions most forensic accountants would have missed. The patterns she identified are classic indicators of systematic financial fraud. Marcus's attorney tried to attack Morrison's credentials, tried to suggest bias, tried everything. It didn't work. Judge Coleman listened, her expression growing darker with each revelation. When Morrison finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Then, based on this report, I'm ruling as follows. First, Mr. Sterling will pay $2.1 million to Mrs. Sterling within 30 days, half the identified hidden assets. Second, this court is referring all evidence to the U.S. Attorney's Office. Third, full custody of the minor child is awarded to Mrs. Sterling. Fourth, a permanent restraining order is issued preventing Mr. Sterling from contacting Mrs. Sterling or their child. She looked at Marcus. Mr. Sterling, I suggest you get very good criminal defense attorneys. You're going to need them. The courtroom erupted. Marcus stood. Victoria, please. I didn't look at him. I gathered my things, my hands steady. Outside, Rebecca hugged me. You did it. We did it, I corrected. That night, someone set fire to my car. It was parked outside my father's house. I woke to the smell of smoke, sirens, neighbors shouting. By the time the fire department arrived, the Honda was a charred skeleton. The police found an accelerant, arson. The detective who'd come for the brick looked at the car, then at me. You need to get out of town for a while. I have a court order, I said. I can't leave the state. Then get somewhere safe in the state. He handed me a card. Domestic violence shelter, they can help. I stood on the sidewalk, watching them hose down the remains of my car. The car Blake had mocked at the Christmas party, and knew this wasn't over. Marcus wasn't going to prison quietly. He was going to burn everything down on his way. My phone rang, unknown number. I answered, expecting another threat. Victoria, it's Karen Edwards, are you okay? My car was just set on fire, so no. A pause. He's desperate. The FBI contacted me today. They want to interview me about the money laundering. Marcus knows. What does that mean? It means he has nothing left to lose. Her voice dropped. I'm scared, Victoria. What if he comes after me next? Go somewhere safe, I said. A friend's house, a hotel, don't go home. I can't afford. Use my card. I gave her the number from the last of my savings. There's about 2,000 left. Use it. Get safe. Why are you helping me? She asked, her voice small. Because you helped me when you didn't have to. I hung up and went inside to check on my father. He was awake, sitting in his chair, confused by the commotion. Just a car fire, Dad, I said, helping him back to bed. Nothing to worry about. He patted my hand. You're a good girl, Victoria. Your mother would be proud. Tears threatened. I swallowed them. The next morning, Rebecca called with bad news. Marcus filed an appeal. He's arguing judicial bias. He's also filed a motion to stay the $2.1 million payment pending appeal. How long will that take? Months, maybe a year, she sighed. And he's countersuing you for defamation, claiming your fraud allegations damaged his business reputation. I closed my eyes. So even though we won, I get nothing, and now I have to defend a lawsuit. We'll fight it, but Victoria, you need to be careful. The arson, the brick, this isn't just legal warfare anymore. I know. 2 days later, I went into labor. It started at 3 a.m. contractions coming fast and hard. My water broke in the kitchen while I was making tea. I called an ambulance, called Rebecca, called Maggie. At the hospital, everything became a blur of pain and fear and bright lights. My daughter was born at 7:14 a.m. Grace Elizabeth Miller. 6 pounds, 3 ounces, perfect. I held her for the first time, this tiny human with my dark hair and Marcus's chin, and felt a love so fierce it terrified me. The nurse took her for measurements. Rebecca arrived with coffee and a worried expression. Marcus knows, she said. His lawyer called the hospital trying to get information. I had them block all inquiries. He can't see her, I said, my voice raw. The restraining order. I know, but he's going to try. She sat beside the bed. How are you? Tired, happy, scared. That's normal. She handed me an envelope. This came to my office, for you. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Congratulations on your daughter. She's beautiful. We need to talk. M. No signature needed. How did he get a picture? My hands shook. I don't know. Rebecca took the note. But we're going to find out. That afternoon, a delivery arrived. Flowers, dozens of white roses. The card, for Grace, love Daddy. I threw them in the hallway trash. The nurse saw, her eyes wide. Ex-husband, I explained. She nodded like she understood. But the flowers kept coming. Every day, roses, lilies, orchids. With notes. Thinking of you both. She looks like me. We should be a family. On day 3, Rebecca got a court order barring deliveries to my room. On day 4, Marcus showed up at the hospital. I was walking Grace in the hallway when I saw him at the nurse's station, arguing, demanding to see his daughter. Security arrived, showed him the restraining order. He left, but not before catching my eye. He smiled, a cold, calculated smile. That night, I couldn't sleep. Grace slept in her bassinet beside my bed. My father was with a round-the-clock caregiver at home. I was supposed to be discharged tomorrow. But going home didn't feel safe anymore. At 2 a.m., my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. A picture of Grace's bassinet, taken through the hospital room window. The text, she's perfect, we'll be together soon. I called security, showed them the picture. They reviewed camera footage, found nothing. The angle suggests someone in the building across the street, the security guard said. But that's an office building, empty at night. Unless someone has access, I said. Rebecca arrived at dawn. We're moving you, today, somewhere he can't find you. Where? A safe house, domestic violence program. They'll take you and Grace until we can get this under control. My father can come. They have facilities for elderly family members. I looked at Grace, sleeping peacefully, unaware that her father was a stranger who wanted to use her as a weapon. Okay, I said, let's go. The safe house was in Westchester County, a modest house on a quiet street, 3 other women with children, a counselor, security cameras. For the first time in months, I slept through the night. The next morning, Rebecca called with an update. The FBI wants to interview you, about Marcus, about the money laundering. They're building a case. When? Tomorrow, they'll come to you. The agents arrived at 10 a.m., 2 of them, a man and a woman, serious, professional. They sat at the safe house's kitchen table, while Grace slept in a portable crib beside me. For 2 hours, I walked them through everything. The hidden assets, the shell companies, the Monroe connection. The payments to Blake dating back years. The female agent took notes. The male agent asked sharp, specific questions. When I finished, they exchanged a look. "Mrs. Sterling," the female agent said, "what you've given us is substantial. We'll be presenting this to a grand jury. There will likely be indictments." "How long?" "Weeks, maybe a month." She handed me a card. "If you think of anything else, or if anything unusual happens." Unusual, like my car being set on fire. Exactly like that. After they left, I sat at the table, exhausted. The counselor, a woman named Maria, brought me tea. First time. First time for what? Talking to the FBI, being in a safe house, all of it. She smiled gently. "It's a lot." "It is." "You're handling it better than most." She nodded toward Grace. "For her." "For her," I agreed. That afternoon, my phone rang. Marcus's lawyer. "Mrs. Sterling, my client would like to discuss a settlement, without further litigation." I put him on speaker so Rebecca could hear. "What kind of settlement?" "He'll drop the defamation suit. Pay the $2.1 million immediately. In exchange, you drop the fraud allegations with the FBI." Rebecca shook her head violently. "No," I said. "Mrs. Sterling, be reasonable. This is a generous offer. You get your money. He avoids prison. Your daughter has a father who isn't a felon." "My daughter has a father who tried to destroy me," I said. "The answer is no." He hung up. 10 minutes later, my father's caregiver called. "Ms. Sterling, there are men here, asking for you. They say they're with Child Protective Services." My blood went cold. "Don't let them in. Call the police." "They have badges." "Call the police." I called Rebecca. "They're at my father's house, claiming to be CPS." "I'm on it." She hung up. I paced the safe house living room, Grace in my arms. Fear, sharp and metallic, filled my mouth. Maria watched me. "They're trying to get to you through your father." "I know." Rebecca called back 20 minutes later. "It was a private investigator, not CPS. The police ran him off, but Victoria, they're getting creative and desperate." "What do I do?" "You stay hidden. You let the FBI do their job, and you trust that the truth is enough." That night, I dreamed of the Christmas party. The laughter. The champagne. The divorce papers. Marcus's smile as he destroyed me. I woke to Grace crying, hungry. As I fed her, I thought about truth, about justice, about how neither felt as comforting as they should. The FBI moved quickly. 3 weeks later, Marcus Sterling and Frank Monroe were indicted on 23 counts including wire fraud, tax evasion, and money laundering conspiracy. The news broke on a Tuesday morning. I watched on the safe house television as Marcus was led from his office in handcuffs. Reporters shouted questions. He kept his head down. Blake was interviewed outside her apartment, tears streaming. "I had no idea. I loved him. I thought he loved me." I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Rebecca came over that afternoon with champagne. To justice. We drank sparkling cider instead. "What happens now?" I asked. "Trial, probably a plea deal. Prison." She looked at me. "You should prepare a victim impact statement for sentencing." "What do I say?" "The truth." The truth. 4 years of marriage. 6 months of pregnancy. A daughter he tried to take. A life he tried to destroy. The truth felt both too big and too small. Grace cooed in her bassinet. I picked her up, held her close. "It's over," I whispered. But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't true. Some things never end. They just change shape. The trial would come. The sentencing. The appeals. And then there was the rest of our lives. A daughter who would one day ask about her father, a father whose memory was fading, a career I needed to rebuild. Rebecca left. Maria made dinner. The other women in the safe house shared stories of their own escapes, their own battles. I listened. I learned. That night, as I rocked Grace to sleep, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. A news article link. Sterling global stock plummets after CEO indictment. Another text, you did this. I didn't respond. Another, you'll regret it. I blocked the number. But the message was clear. Winning in court didn't mean winning in life. Marcus might go to prison. But the fight wasn't over. Not even close. The sentencing hearing was set for December 23rd. One day shy of a year since the Christmas party where Marcus Sterling had ended our marriage in front of 200 people. I stood in the safe house bedroom, holding a black dress against myself in the mirror. It was simple, severe, nothing like the emerald maternity dress I'd worn that night. Grace, now 11 months old, played with blocks on the floor behind me, babbling happily. Mommy has to go see a judge today, I told her, though she wouldn't understand. To make sure Daddy can't hurt us anymore. She looked up, her brown eyes so like mine, and smiled around the block in her mouth. The doorbell rang. Rebecca was early. I opened the door to find her holding 2 coffee cups and looking more tired than I'd ever seen her. Rough night, I asked, taking one. Marcus's legal team filed a last-minute motion for leniency, medical grounds, claiming he has a heart condition that prison would exacerbate. Does he? He has a doctor who says he does, she shrugged. It's a stall tactic, but the judge might buy it. We drove to the federal courthouse in silence. The city looked different through the car window, less like a place I'd lived, more like a battleground I'd survived. The courtroom was packed. Reporters, court artists. Blake Monroe sat in the front row, her father conspicuously absent. Frank Monroe had taken a plea deal 2 months earlier, 15 years in exchange for testifying against Marcus. My father was with his caregiver at the safe house. His good days were fewer now. The dementia progressed in uneven steps, taking pieces of him while leaving others startlingly intact. I took my seat beside Rebecca at the prosecutor's table. The U.S. attorney, a woman named Amanda Chen, nodded to me. Ready? Yes. Marcus was let in. He wore a suit, not prison garb. His lawyers had argued for civilian clothes at sentencing. He looked thinner, older. His eyes found me immediately. I didn't look away. For a year, I'd been afraid of this man. For a year, I'd hidden, run, fought. Now I just felt tired. Judge Samuel Bennett took the bench. 60, stern, known for harsh sentences in white-collar cases. Mr. Sterling, he began, you've been convicted on 23 counts of fraud, conspiracy, and money laundering. The guidelines recommend 12 to 15 years. Before I sentence you, I'll hear from the victims. Amanda Chen stood. Your Honor, the government requests the maximum sentence. Mr. Sterling didn't just steal from his company. He built a criminal enterprise. He manipulated his wife. He attempted to take their child as a weapon. This wasn't a crime of opportunity. It was a years-long campaign of deception. Marcus's lawyer stood next, silver-haired, expensive. Your Honor, my client is a first-time offender. He's donated millions to charity. He's employed hundreds. He's also the father of an infant daughter who needs him. The judge looked at me. Mrs. Sterling, you've asked to make a statement. I stood. My hands didn't shake. For a year, I'd thought about what I would say. The anger, the betrayal, the fear. But when I opened my mouth, different words came out. Your Honor, I began, my daughter is 11 months old. She's learning to walk. She says mama and dog, and she laughs when I tickle her feet. She's never met her father. Not really. I looked at Marcus. He stared back, his expression unreadable. For 4 years, I was married to a man I didn't know. I thought he was building a business. He was building a crime. I thought he loved me. He loved what I could do for him. When I became inconvenient, he tried to destroy me. I took a breath. He emptied our bank accounts. He locked me out of our home. He stood in front of 200 people and ended our marriage as entertainment. He tried to take my daughter by claiming I was mentally unstable. And when I fought back, when I uncovered his crimes, he had my car set on fire. He sent threatening messages. He made sure I knew I was never safe. The courtroom was silent. "I'm not here for revenge," I said. "I'm here because my daughter deserves to grow up in a world where accountability exists, where powerful men don't get to break things and walk away, where truth matters." I sat down. My legs felt weak. The judge was quiet for a long moment. Then, Mr. Sterling stand. Marcus stood. "I've reviewed the evidence in this case," Judge Bennett said. "I've read the victim impact statements. I've considered your charitable donations, your employees, your daughter." He adjusted his glasses. "But here's what I keep coming back to. You didn't just steal money. You stole a life. You built a marriage on lies. You used your wife's skills to build your empire while planning her disposal. And when she discovered the truth, you tried to take everything from her, including her child." Marcus opened his mouth to speak. The judge held up a hand. "I'm not finished. You showed no remorse. You fought every step. You attacked the victim. You threatened. You intimidated. That tells me you don't understand what you did wrong, only that you got caught." He looked down at his notes. "The sentence is 15 years in federal prison, plus restitution of $5.8 million to Sterling Global's investors, plus forfeiture of all assets obtained through criminal enterprise." 15 years. Marcus's lawyer was on his feet. "Your Honor." "The sentence stands. Mr. Sterling, you'll be remanded to custody immediately." U.S. Marshals moved forward. Handcuffs clicked shut. Marcus looked at me one last time as they led him away. His expression was blank, empty. Then he was gone. The courtroom erupted in noise. Reporters rushed out to file stories. Blake Monroe left without looking at anyone. Rebecca squeezed my hand. "It's over." But it was. Not yet. 3 months later, I stood outside a modest office building in Lower Manhattan and watched the sign being installed above the door. Second Chance FORNSICS. Financial truths for a fresh start. Maggie appeared at my shoulder with 2 coffees. Not bad for a nobody from Queens. I smiled. I had help. "Damn right you did." She nodded toward the door. "Speaking of which, your first client is inside. Young woman just found out her husband's been hiding assets. Sound familiar?" I took the coffee and headed inside. The office was simple but warm. Grace's artwork adorned one wall, colorful scribbles that looked like abstract masterpieces to me, photos of my father on good days, of Grace's first birthday, of the women from the safe house who'd become friends. Karen Edwards sat at the reception desk, answering phones. She joined me as my first employee, bringing the same attention to detail that had once helped Marcus hide his crimes. "Client in your office," she said. "She's nervous." Aren't they always? The young woman waiting looked like I had a year ago. Red-rimmed eyes, hands that wouldn't stop shaking, a folder clutched to her chest like a shield. "Mrs. Miller?" she asked. "Victoria," I corrected. "Please sit." She was 29, 2 children, a husband who just announced he was leaving for his assistant, bank accounts suddenly empty. "He says I'm imagining things," she whispered, "that I don't understand finances, that I should just sign the papers and take the settlement." I listened. I heard my own story in hers. When she finished, I opened the folder she'd brought. Bank statements, Tax returns, credit card bills. The patterns were there, faint early, but there. "I believe you," I said, "and I'm going to help you find the truth." Her relief was physical, shoulders dropping, breath exhaling. "Thank you, I didn't know where else to go." Most women don't. We worked for 2 hours, tracing transactions, identifying odd patterns, building a picture of what her husband was hiding. When she left with a plan and a list of documents to gather, I sat at my desk and looked out the window. Manhattan stretched before me, a city of 8 million stories, some of them happy, some of them broken, most of them somewhere in between. My phone buzzed, a text from my father's caregiver. "Harold's having a good day, asking for you and Grace." I packed up my laptop. "Karen, I'm heading out early. Can you handle the rest of the appointments?" "Of course," she smiled. "Go be with your dad." The safe house had become a temporary apartment while I looked for something permanent. My father had his own room. Grace had hers. We were a small, fractured family slowly piecing ourselves back together. My father was sitting by the window when I arrived, watching birds at the feeder. He turned when I entered, his eyes clearing for a moment. "Victoria, there you are." "Hi, Dad," I kissed his cheek. "How are you feeling?" "Old," he smiled. "Where's my granddaughter?" "With Maria. She'll be back from the park soon." He patted the chair beside him. "Sit, tell me about your day." I told him about the office, the client, the new business. He listened, nodding occasionally. "Your mother would be proud," he said when I finished. "She always said you were the smart one." "I miss her." "Me too." He looked out the window again. "Every day." Grace arrived minutes later, cheeks pink from the cold, babbling excitedly about pigeons. She ran to my father, climbing into his lap with the easy confidence of a child who knows she's loved. He held her, his hands gentle. "You look like your grandmother," he told her. Same smile. Watching them, I felt a peace I hadn't known in over a year. This was what I'd fought for. Not the money, not the victory. This quiet moment, this safety, this love. The letter arrived a week later. Thick, official, from the Federal Bureau of Prisons. I almost didn't open it, almost threw it away. But something made me slice the envelope. Inside was a request for a visitor form. Marcus wanted me to visit him, to bring Grace. A note in his handwriting was paperclipped to the form. "Victoria, I've had time to think, to reflect. I made terrible mistakes. I hurt you. I want to apologize in person. I want to meet my daughter. Please. Marcus." I showed it to Rebecca that afternoon. "He can ask," she said, handing it back. "You can say no." "Should I?" "That's not a legal question." She studied me. "Do you want to?" "No." "Then don't." But it wasn't that simple. Grace would grow up. She would ask questions. She would want to know about her father. Did I owe her the chance to meet him? Did I owe him anything? I thought about it for days. Then I wrote back. "Marcus." "No." "Victoria." It was short, final. I didn't hear from him again. 6 months later, Second Chance Forensics had helped 17 women uncover hidden assets totaling over $8 million. We'd become a nonprofit, funded by grants and donations. We offered sliding scale fees, sometimes no fees at all. Karen ran the office with efficiency. Rebecca handled our legal work pro bono. Maggie consulted on complex cases. We were a team of women who'd been broken and put ourselves back together. One Tuesday afternoon, a woman walked in without an appointment. Mid-40s, expensive clothes that didn't fit quite right, a nervous energy. "I need to speak with Victoria Miller," she told Karen. "Do you have an appointment?" No, but she'll want to see me. The woman met Corinne's eyes. Tell her Blake Monroe is here. I was with a client when Corinne interrupted. Her expression told me everything. Give me 5 minutes, I told my client. Blake was waiting in the small conference room. She stood when I entered, her hands clasped tightly. Victoria. Blake. We stood there, two women who'd been enemies, separated by a table and a year of devastation. You look well, she said. You look tired. She almost smiled. I am, she gestured to a chair. May I? I nodded. We sat. My father's in prison, she began. Marcus is in prison. The Monroe Empire is gone. The money, the houses, the cars, all gone. I waited. I'm living with a friend, she continued. I'm working as a receptionist. It's humbling. Why are you here, Blake? She took a deep breath. To apologize. I didn't say anything. I knew about the affair, she said. I knew he was married. I told myself you didn't understand him, that you weren't right for him, that I was. She looked down at her hands. I didn't know about the fraud, not until the end. My father, he kept that part from me. But the affair, that was all me, and I'm sorry. The apology hung between us. Fragile, insufficient. Why now? I asked. Because I've been thinking about that Christmas party, about what we did to you, and I realized I would have hated me too. She met my eyes. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just saying the words because they need to be said. I studied her. The perfect blonde hair was darker at the roots. The expensive nails were short, unpolished. The confidence was gone. Thank you for saying them, I said finally. She nodded, standing. That's all, I'll go. Blake. She paused. What will you do now? She shrugged. Start over, I guess. Figure out who I am without my father's money, without Marcus. A small, bitter smile. Turns out I'm not very good at being poor. No one is at first. She looked at me then, really looked. You were. I had practice. She left without another word. Corinne appeared in the doorway. Everything okay? Yeah. I watched through the window as Blake walked down the street, disappearing into the crowd. It is. Grace's second birthday party was held in a park near our new apartment. We moved out of the safe house 3 months earlier into a 2-bedroom in Queens, close to my father's doctors, close to good schools for Grace. My father sat in a folding chair, watching Grace tear into presence with the focused intensity of a tiny general. He was having a good day. They were becoming rarer, but we cherished them when they came. Maggie brought a cake shaped like a dinosaur. Rebecca brought bubbles. Corinne brought a tiny forensic accountant kit she'd made herself, a toy microscope, play documents, a little lab coat. Grace loved it. As the sun set and the party wound down, I sat beside my father, watching Grace try to blow bubbles with more enthusiasm than skill. She's something, my father said. She is. He was quiet for a moment. Then, I'm proud of you, you know. I know, Dad. No, I mean, he struggled for words. The dementia made expressing complex thoughts difficult. You got knocked down, got back up, made something good from the broken pieces. That's everything. Tears pricked my eyes. Thanks, Dad. He patted my hand. Your mother would be proud too. I hope so. He fell asleep in his chair not long after, the gentle snore I remembered from childhood. I covered him with a blanket, kissed his forehead. Rebecca helped me clean up. You doing okay? Yeah. I looked around at the remains of the party, the wrapping paper, the cake crumbs, the happy exhaustion. Really okay. Good, she hugged me. You deserve it. That night, after Grace was asleep and my father was settled, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of tea and did something I hadn't allowed myself to do in over a year. I remembered. Not just the bad parts, the Christmas party, the locks, the fire. But the before. The man who'd spilled coffee on my favorite book and spent the whole evening apologizing. The promises of a simple life built on love. The late nights talking about dreams. The first time we saw the apartment we'd make a home. I remembered loving him, or loving who I thought he was. And I forgave myself for that. For being fooled. For trusting. For loving. Because that's what the last year had taught me. Being fooled didn't make me a fool. Trusting didn't make me weak. Loving didn't make me stupid. It made me human. And humans survive. Humans heal. Humans take their broken pieces and build something new. My phone buzzed. A text from Karen. Client from yesterday just called. She found the offshore accounts. She's bringing documents tomorrow. I smiled. Another woman finding her truth. Another story beginning. The annual report for Second Chance Forensics showed we'd helped 43 women in our first year. Recovered $12.7 million in hidden assets. Provided court testimony in 18 cases. We were growing. I hired another forensic accountant. A young woman named Chloe who'd left a big firm after realizing she was helping wealthy men hide money from their wives. I want to be on the other side, she'd said in her interview. Welcome to the other side, I'd told her. One afternoon, as I was preparing for a court appearance, my phone rang. An unfamiliar number with a federal prison area code. I almost didn't answer. But I did. Victoria. His voice was different, older, tired. Marcus. A pause. You answered. I'm hanging up now. Wait, he rushed the word. Please just listen 1 minute. I didn't say anything. I got your letter, he said. The no, I deserved that. I waited. I'm in therapy here, mandatory, and I've been thinking about what I did, what I took from you. His voice broke. I'm sorry, Victoria, I know it doesn't mean anything. I know it's too late, but I'm saying it anyway. I closed my eyes. Grace, he swallowed audibly. Is she okay? She's wonderful. I'd like, maybe one day, a picture. No. Another pause, longer this time. Okay, I understand. Goodbye, Marcus. Victoria, but I'd already hung up. I sat at my desk, my hands steady, my breathing even. No anger. No fear. No pain. Just nothing. And that nothing felt like freedom. 3 years to the day after the Christmas party, I stood in my office looking at a framed newspaper article on the wall. Local woman BUILDS business, helping others escape financial abuse. The photo showed me at my desk, Grace on my lap, both of us smiling. My father had passed away 6 months earlier, peacefully, in his sleep, on a good day. We'd buried him beside my mother. Grace had placed a single flower on the grave, her small hand patting the headstone. Bye-bye, Grandpa. The grief was there, a quiet companion, but so was gratitude, for the good days we'd had, for the time we'd shared. Grace was for now, fierce, funny. She knew her mother helped women find hidden money. She didn't know why, not yet. One day I would tell her, about her father, about the Christmas party, about the fight. One day. But not today. Today, I had work to do. A new client waited in the conference room, a woman in her 50s. Her husband of 30 years had just left, taken everything. She was scared. She was angry. She was me 3 years ago. I straightened my suit, took a breath, and walked in. Hello, I said, smiling. I'm Victoria. Tell me how I can help. She looked up, her eyes red-rimmed, her hands shaking. I don't know if you can. He's taken everything. The accounts are empty. He says I'm being paranoid. I believe you, I said, sitting across from her. And together we're going to find the truth. Her relief was immediate. Her shoulders dropped. A tear escaped. I handed her a tissue. It starts with paperwork. Let's begin. As we worked, the sun streamed through the window, painting the room in afternoon gold. Outside, Manhattan hummed with its endless energy. Millions of stories, millions of hearts, breaking and healing, ending and beginning. Somewhere in that city, a woman was discovering her husband had been lying to her. Somewhere, a wife was gathering courage to ask questions she was afraid to have answered. Somewhere, a mother was wondering if she was strong enough to protect her children from a man who'd promised to love her. And somewhere in Queens, in a small office with a sign that read Second Chance, FORNSICS, a woman who'd survived her own devastation was waiting to help them. To show them they weren't alone. To show them the system could be fought. To show them that truth was still the most powerful weapon any of them had. Because that was the lesson my own breaking had taught me. Not that life was fair, it was. Not that justice always prevailed, sometimes it didn't. But that ordinary women possessed extraordinary strength they didn't know they had until everything was taken from them. And they had no choice but to discover it. My phone buzzed on the desk, a text from Grace's preschool. Grace told her class her mommy catches bad guys who hide money. Thought you should know. I smiled. My daughter, already understanding in her 4-year-old way. Already proud. I texted back, tell her I'll be there at 5, with ice cream. Then I turned back to my client, to the spread of bank statements and tax returns, to the work of finding truth in a world of lies. The sun was setting over Manhattan, painting the sky in shades of rose and gold. I watched it for a moment through the window, thinking about Christmas parties and divorce papers, and the woman I'd been before everything fell apart. That woman was gone. In her place stood someone harder, wiser, unbreakable, and just getting started.